Hey everybody, welcome back to Make More Music, the podcast that connects you to music and one another. Today is a bonus episode with my friend and colleague Jaytee Tang, who's a music therapist currently living and working in Singapore, but we first met and worked together for several years at Florida Hospital in Orlando, now Advent Health. So I realized I'd done all these episodes and not really fleshed out what music therapy is and how you become one. I have some interviews on the Tone Mob and on Music Therapy Chronicles and Creative Therapy Umbrella that go in a little bit more into my story. If you want to hear those are in the show notes. But JT just gives a good overview of his life and how you become a music therapist. And he has a big worldly lens and a big cultural perspective on music therapy. So I thought it'd be fun to chat with him. Originally, he was going to be my co-host for the show, but the Kentucky to Singapore time difference didn't quite work. But after that, if you stick around, I have a new music shout out from DK Lyons, who is releasing music today. So you're hearing a premiere of his song that came out today. So check that out. And remember, you can support the show. Lots of links in the description on YouTube and the show notes below in your podcast player. All right, without further ado, here is Make More Music with Jaytee Tang. All right, so this time you and I are. I'm not going to follow the script pretty much at all. You can follow it if you would like, if it's helpful for you. But so JT, thanks for calling in this morning. I'm sipping a lot of coffee. It's not even that early, but you and I originally were going to do this podcast together. We didn't know what it was going to look like, but the Singapore to Kentucky time difference has turned out to be a lot more challenging than we both anticipated. Even though it's 12 hours exactly, I was like, yeah, that gives us like a good range.
But even 12 hours, I mean, even right now for you it's morning and for me it's at night. So it's like, it's hard to coordinate certain things where, if you needed something to do and then I can only respond when I either wake up or when you wake up. So it is challenging.
Well, what has been going on in Singapore with all the coronavirus stuff? Because it sounds like you all were like a month ahead of us.
We were, and I think compared to where maybe the European countries or Western countries are at, I think we're in a better place. Just that we are now more prepared or know what to expect, or at least we're more cooperative, I guess, in terms of what to do. Like if the government says that, we need to stay indoors. I mean, recently there was a sudden surge in number of cases, but other than that, we're still hanging in there and we're still chugging along, and we're all doing our part to try and stop this coronavirus from spreading further.
What have you been doing? Have you been at home mostly?
I have, and so the tricky part for me is that I work in multiple places. So some of my music therapy work had to stop because they wanted to prevent what they call cross institution or cross places contamination. So some of the places that I work at is at a hospital, which is a bit more stressful at the moment. I do work at a music school providing music therapy services for younger children or school age children. And then I do work at a university. So between the three places, if I were to still go to work, I'll be interacting with a lot of different people. So because of what we call the DOSCON orange, and that's like a sort of like a status in terms of when there's a disease outbreak, what happens, and if it goes to red, then there'll be more lockdown, there'll be more stringent measures in place to prevent the spread of this virus. So right now it's in August, in code orange, and that just means that there's some cases that it's harder to track where those cases are coming from or who they're interacting with. But other than that, I think we're hanging in there. The Music Therapy Association, we've been doing great. We have been organizing several ways to just support one another as well as support the community. And I think even some videos were just shown on Facebook and on national TV of how music therapy is still continuing in some of the hospitals. That they're doing, I think, what we call telehealth. They sort of
Hmm.
Skype with a music therapist, and then the nursing staff will be the hands and feet of the therapist in the actual location when they're doing groups and things like that. So it's going well, and I'm curious about what's happening in the US.
Well, it sounds roughly the same. I mean, at my clinic, we've done the same thing because obviously I work at a university, but I also
Mm-hmm.
do the same thing um, where I'm going out to homes, to facilities, and people are coming into us. At first, they immediately canceled everybody coming on campus. And
Mm.
I was kind of confused. I was like, why would I go see people off campus if people are not allowed to come on campus? So
Right.
we kind of just paused everything for a minute, and that was like 2 Wednesdays ago, and then everything escalated like really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Suddenly it was like we're shut down for the rest of the semester doing telehealth or doing like, because I'm taking that audio engineering class right now, and
Mm.
I'm doing that all on Blackboard, all online for the
Mm-hmm.
rest of the semester. So I had to get Pro Tools first, the like free version.
I
Um, and my poor little computer is puttering along
Oh
trying to run Pro
no.
Tools. It's doing fine though. But yeah, so I had to quickly figure out, okay, what are we allowed to use with telehealth?
Right.
How do I feel about telehealth? Um, I think overall, I'm glad I have the alternative, and for a lot of my behavioral based clients that have very clear like behavioral objectives,
Mm-hmm.
uh, or clients that can do talk based things. So both ends of the spectrum seem to work kind of well.
Hmm.
But in the middle, the and anything that requires joint music interaction
Mm-hmm.
is just not super feasible, which is a bummer.
Right.
Just with the
Yeah.
latency and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I found out I was looking on Reverb. They had a post about 11 tools for musicians working remotely,
Hmm.
and I haven't tried it yet, but I signed up for this free program called Jam Kazam, and
Okay.
it is apparently something that you can use to play online with other musicians, and it says that it's super low latency.
Ah.
Obviously, I don't think it's HIPAA compliant,
Hmm.
so I don't think I can. I might be able to like get people to sign a release if there's somebody who's more appropriate for that,
Right.
but I don't know. I don't know because it's also like a service that you can find someone to like track guitar for your track. Like it's like a meeting place for finding
I see. I
collaboration.
see.
That's what it's originally intended for. But I'm wondering if I could find uses for that. Depending, I want to try like how low latency is it.
Hmm.
I've done some things where it's just like, okay, I'm just going to interact and we're just going to do this thing, and I'm not going to care that everything is delayed, and even when they're right on time it seems really awkward.
Hmm.
uh, so I kind of have to just like be confident and push through, but
Right.
um, and it's working pretty good. It's working better than I thought, and I think the main reason I think it's working better than I thought is um, obviously you and I were in Orlando, or you
Hmm.
hadn't moved to Orlando yet. The Pulse shootings,
I
or
was there.
you were there?
I was there. Yeah.
I couldn't remember. I felt like Antonio was still there at that time.
No, I was there. I think that
I'm
was.
thinking backwards. Yeah, it was a year later. So you were pretty
Yeah.
new at that time.
Probably.
Uh,
I remember
yeah,
that event happening.
you would have been there after like that would have been like 3 months that you had been there.
Probably. I guess I can't really remember.
So, um, so
Yeah.
I'm mixing up Rich's maternity leave with that's why I'm mixing things up.
Right.
So I
But.
remember
Mm-hmm.
the trauma training that we all did
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
after,
Yeah.
and uh, what I realize, and I think the best thing about telehealth right now for music therapy is that uh, people can still get normalized music making experiences in this like traumatic time. So it almost feels like doing something normal, doing something regular. So even though the latency issues, even though it's not
Mm-hmm.
ideal, all of the clinic artists that I interact with, I get on, it's not Skype. I get on Blue Jeans is the
Mm.
application that U of L uses. And it's like Skype, but it's more HIPAA compliant. It has
Mm.
everybody gets their own private virtual meeting room, and then they keep that code forever. It's their
Mm.
code.
Nice.
Um, so I get on there and they're smiling, they're ready to interact, and they're ready to do normal things, especially with a lot of the people I work with that have special needs. Their
Mm-hmm.
whole life routine is thrown off, and everybody's is thrown off, but it's even more significant for people who have challenges adapting to when the
Right.
routine has changed. So,
Precisely. Precisely.
well, let's we talked at conference. We tried to do this once before. It was
Mm.
okay, but you and I were new to this podcasting thing, and you also
Mm-hmm.
had like this
I
weird
was cough
cold. You had
cold.
the pre-coronavirus. You're patient zero.
Maybe.
JT's patient zero.
Don't tell anybody.
Um, so let's just start over. I want everybody today to get a picture. I've talked with several music therapists already, but all of
Mm-hmm.
them are doing very different things, which is a picture of music therapy. You've got Brian Schreck, I've already talked to,
Mm-hmm.
Tim Ringgold,
Mm-hmm.
Trisha Coyote.
Mm-hmm.
I've done an interview with Rich
Mm-hmm.
um, and Rachel Ramback. So they're all doing very different things.
Right.
But I thought it would be cool for you and me to just talk about music therapy in general. But briefly, though, JT, tell me, like, what are your early musical memories, and what was inspiring, and who were the people that were pushing you towards music, and what music do you remember from being a kid and things like that?
That's an interesting story, I would say, because growing up, I think, at least in Singapore, people don't really want to pursue music as a career. Music is always seen as this, what we call extra curricular activity that you
Mm,
do to boost up your resume, to boost up your CV, so that when people look at what you have or what you've accomplished, it's like, oh wow, they've done this, while having good grades. And I think that's very much typical of Singaporeans. I might be overgeneralizing, where um, almost everybody has had some form of musical training. And so growing up, I was, in a way, kind of forced into learning piano. I was put into piano classes, typical Asian classical piano. My older brother, was put through that as well. He went up to a certain, according to the UK system, the ABRSM grade 5. Um, and for some weird reason, I kind of stuck it through. I remember that I was around maybe 13 or 14. So in the US system, that's high school. In Singapore, we call it secondary school. During that time, I kind of like took a step back and like said, hey, maybe I don't want to do music. And that was probably because when I was learning music, it was all classical pieces. So imagine playing Mozart, playing
mm,
Chopin, playing weird, not weird, playing very normal sounding pieces, and didn't really have that much fun because you're basically reading off a score. And it was at that same time that I started to um, get a bit more involved in music. I was playing at churches, I was playing at
mm,
bands, and I was involved in the school choir. And that's where I kind of maybe realized for myself how much I love music or how much I like music. And that's where,
mm,
after maybe about a year of like a break from classical music, I said to my mom, hey, maybe I think I should continue piano classes. And so I went through all the way up to the highest grade in the UK ABRSM system. In Singapore is grade 8. So I went up all the way up to grade 8. And by that time, I think I was already in my first university in Singapore, Management University, SMU in Singapore. And I was gigging, I was playing for services in church, I was singing at different places. And so I was pretty much active. And I guess some of the things that kept me going were my friends, that we would just have
mm.
fun while gigging, we'll have
Yeah.
fun while we just play music. And I think the turning point of when I wanted to take this seriously was, again, when I was in my first university. Back then, this probably dates you and me, or date us. that was when YouTube was just starting out. There was post MySpace, pre YouTube, or about the beginnings of
Yeah,
YouTube.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
so during that time, that I was following this YouTube artist. He's an Asian American, and I was like, wow, he's doing pretty well. I can do pretty much the same stuff as he can do, maybe not as well, but getting there. And from there, he actually went to Berklee College of Music, and that's where I was like, maybe I should go there. I read up about Berklee, found out it was actually quite a tough school to get into, found out about jazz, and I was like, oh, maybe let's give it a try. And so I think that's probably the starting point of me thinking that
Yeah.
I should, that I want this to be a career. I didn't know what kind of musical career that I was going to go for. I was still young and naive about the world, and having those dreams of I'm going to be the best rock band or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, but it was at
So
Berkeley. Yeah.
go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say that it was at Berkeley that I found music therapy, and that's where I've stuck through from then on to now.
So before we get on to music therapy, you would definitely say piano is still your primary and is still the instrument that you when you go to make music first, do you
Yes,
instinctively?
probably. I
Yeah.
mean, either singing or piano or some form of combination of either one.
Mm.
Um, if I'm making music for myself, like for my own self care purposes, or making music just for fun, I tend to be on the piano. When I'm kind of maybe writing songs, that's where I'll use my voice a little bit more. But yes,
Mm.
piano and voice, probably.
You mentioned you kind of did a very strict classical program.
Hmm.
Uh, I also know you have a pretty good ear. What did was that part of the program or did that develop differently or how did you develop your ear?
I have no idea. I guess that it just came out from learning classical piano. I mean, I wouldn't say that I have perfect pitch, but it was
But you have really good pitch.
relatively. Thank you very much.
Yeah, better than me. Better than me.
I mean, I'm not sure. I guess part of it is starting young. I think that's
Yeah.
where when the repetition starts young, it kind of helps to reinforce certain things. And part of which also was because I was curious. I was listening to stuff on the TV, listening to stuff on the radio, and I was like, oh, I want to figure that out. And so
Mm.
figuring things out, or learning to play by ear, is what people call it. I think that definitely helped with my ear training a little bit.
So it was more the extra things rather than your strict.
Probably it's the extra
Yeah.
things plus the, I guess, interest. I was interested in,
Yeah.
back then it was, again, I'm gonna date myself. It was Power Rangers, and I was like, oh, that song sounds cool. I'm gonna learn how to play that.
Yeah.
It was a bit challenging because it's an electric guitar, and I was trying to mimic it on the piano, which didn't quite work.
It's not it's not that hard on the guitar.
Yeah, but on the piano, it just sounded goofy. I say, I
Yeah,
guess
not
it's,
cool.
yeah,
Like a MIDI version of the
yeah.
song.
It's like
Yeah.
there's no distortion. There's no like that rough like go go Power Rangers. There's no, it didn't feel that. Yeah,
That like
yeah,
that
that.
like arpeggio tap part is so cool. Um, so uh, you go to Berkeley. What did you originally think? You just went there as a music major, nothing specific, or
Because in during the application process, you kind of have to indicate like a major. So one of the majors that I indicated was contemporary writing and production, and that was
Mm,
kind of already what I was kind of doing back in Singapore. Um, I was arranging pieces for our band. I was putting together different kinds of songs for my little a cappella group, and so I thought that was probably the way to go off, like contemporary writing, production, making my own music, maybe helping produce other singers, songwriters, and stuff like that. So that was probably what I thought I was gonna do when I first entered Berkeley.
and I gotta know. I remember you telling me these before, but I can't remember the names. What were all your band names and the different things you were a part of growing up?
Ooh, okay. So this, I know we all had different stories of how the different names came about, but I can't remember them right now. But so the a cappella group that I was in, it was called No Through Flow. Don't ask me why, I cannot remember. For some weird reason, we thought it was funny, and it was with some pop reference at that time. Um, the first band that I kind of played with, we called ourselves Fancy Free.
Nice.
We just like the alliteration and that we're just free beings. And then I was subbing for a lot of other bands, so I subbed for this band called The Common People in Singapore.
I love
Um,
it.
there was another band called Kings. It's like a play on Queen Kings.
Oh, there you go.
And then I'm trying to think. There was probably one more, but it's not coming to my mind right now. Um, I think there was one band that we called ourselves. I think it's Wednesday Morning or something like that. And the reason why was because when we jammed or when we practiced, it was Wednesday morning. And when we say Wednesday morning, it's not 8 a.m. morning. It's 12 midnight, 1 a.m. Wednesday morning. So I
Oh,
think,
like, yeah, late at night.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it was. I think it was called that, but I might be wrong. So that, yeah, that's just some.
Those are some pretty solid band names. I like that.
Thank you, thank you.
Um, so we've had a lot of different people come on and talk about their specific paths in music therapy, but what clicked for you and what made you decide you wanted to give that a shot and uh, look into this career path? What
Hmm.
was the aha moment for you?
So, like I said just now, when you apply for Berkeley, you kind of have to indicate at least one major. So I was just focusing on that. Oh, just music creation path, contemporary writing. And when I was in Berkeley, I found that major music therapy, and so I was like, oh, let's give it a shot. It sounds pretty cool. It kind of merges my interests. I was volunteering a lot in Singapore. I was doing music, but I never found a way to kind of connect both. And so the aha moment for me was when I was in my first practicum or first field work placement, and that was in a special school, a special needs school in Boston, in Allston. I think it was called Kennedy Day School, if I remember correctly.
Hmm.
And so that we had to pick kind of like a case study client. And so for me, it was this young boy, um, barely 10 years old. He was nonverbal at that time. And so um, our goals, or at least we decided to want to work on socialization, getting him involved and interactive with other people. And the aha moment was when towards the end, he started actually vocalizing and then
Hmm.
verbalizing. So it became from like just, groaning in music to intentional highs and goodbyes. And so by the end of that practicum placement, he was saying consistently hi, hello, and goodbye to me. And so that was the aha moment because I could see clearly firsthand what how music in a way kind of encouraged that. And what I heard from the other teachers at that place was that music was the only place that he would actually verbalize or vocalize. And that really clicked for me in terms of the power of music in influencing or having behavioral change and creating some sort of positive impact on children with special needs.
So you went to Berkeley,
Hmm.
but I want you to kind of walk through for somebody who's listening in. We have a lot of music therapists that listen in,
Mm,
but for somebody that, a lot of people come to music therapy as a second career path
right,
or different things like that, or maybe a high schooler.
right.
What would you describe generally as what music therapists do, and then talk about the path to becoming a music therapist?
And do you want to talk about it from maybe like an international perspective? Because that's my take on it. I'm from Singapore. We've already said that. I don't know if our listeners were paying
Yeah,
attention.
how about we start with the kind of like Eurocentric first,
Sure.
but we do have a global audience, so we'll
Well, kind
compare
of.
and contrast. We'll
Yeah.
compare and
Sure.
contrast.
Sure. So, um, for me, I guess music therapy is really forming that therapeutic musical relationship with somebody and using that or through that relationship help to promote health and well-being. And so fostering that musical relationship can be in many forms and many methods. It can be even playing preferred music. It might be just making or co-creating music together, what we call
Hmm.
musicking. So that's in a way my definition of music therapy, and how um, we use music as that medium, as that means to kind of connect with people, and then through that connection help to spark change or spark growth. I shouldn't say change, growth in that individual in whatever regard, be
So,
it
what are some common, yeah, places that you spark
right.
growth?
So some of the places that I currently work in right now, it's in mental health. So helping to kind of find the inner joy for some people who are depressed, or find that spark that helps them rekindle whatever they have lost, and in a way kind of gain a new perspective on themselves, because music kind of speaks so much about someone from the way that they play, even without musical training, from the way they express themselves on any form of music or musical instrument. It can reveal a lot of a person's character, and helping them to understand themselves better, to accomplish mental health goals of getting themselves a bit more less depressed, or help to cope with anxiety and things like that. Some other areas that I work in, I do work in special needs, so it might be promoting that social interaction, that communicative expressiveness, and so sometimes it might be even using music to spark that joy in speaking or in singing,
Hmm.
which might help facilitate someone's speech, which might help facilitate someone's um, ability to interact with peers. And so those are some, in a way, common goal areas that I do work on when I work with children with special needs.
Well, tell me about your education path and what that
Mm.
steps to becoming board certified are, and then tell me a little bit about the difference between, what you all are developing in Singapore and
Right.
other. You've done a lot of research in general about international music
Hmm.
therapy.
And this is just my limited knowledge of what I've
You're
read,
fine.
but so in at least in the U.S., I was trained in the U.S. So to become a music therapist, or to become a board certified music therapist in the US, is at least a bachelor's degree, and it has to be a degree in music therapy from an American Music Therapy Association approved institution. So Berklee College of Music was an approved institution. And during that training, I always like to describe it as a three-prong approach. That there is musical skills. To be a music therapist, you do need to be musical. You do need to be able to play a specific instrument, or at least play some sort of instrument, be it your vocal cords or something. Um, and then the second part, I like to call it the therapy skills. So that's where you learn about human anatomy, maybe basic counseling skills, basic therapeutic skills, like abnormal psychology, understanding what the different mental health issues that people face. And so that's the second part. And the third part kind of brings both music and therapy together. And that's where you learn music therapy, how music can influence behavioral change for someone with autism, or how music can help to promote mental health, to help to promote resilience, help to promote identity forming or identity consolidation for someone with mental health issues. And so that's kind of through that program. What happens most often than not is that there is academic courses that you have to take, music psychology, music therapy coursework, as well as field work or practicum placements. That's where you get practical training. You get supervised by a more experienced therapist, and it can range from any setting, from special education to mental health to nursing homes, geriatric facilities, even hospitals. And after that 4-year degree, you do uh, participate in an internship, and the internship lasts for approximately 6 to 7 months. And that's where that's kind of the last part of your training, where you consolidate what you have learned over the 4 years, and you're kind of really put into those experiences to develop your skills as a music therapist. And after which, in the US, you have to sit for a board exam, by the Certification Board of Music Therapists, CBMT. And after passing, then you're awarded the title or the credential board certified music therapist. So
Yeah, and
mhm.
you're applying to internships. It's not quite the same as like getting matched to a residency, but it is that same idea
Yeah.
of you're
Hmm.
applying to a job and you're working there usually for free or for a stipend or for an exchange of
Right. I mean,
living arrangement. Yeah.
it tends to be, most people tend to pick an internship where they see themselves working in. So for example, if
Yes.
you see yourself
Ideally, I would
working,
say.
right. Yeah. Like I mean, I think it's totally similar to a residency. You wouldn't want to, if you don't want to work in cardiology, why would you go and intern in a cardiac clinic,
Just
same.
because a place is convenient, yeah, but
Yeah. Yeah. Those
there
are the
is
reasons.
some privilege in that, I would say, for sure,
Hmm.
and it's a hot topic in colleges. It's not even a hot topic in music therapy, it's a hot
Right.
topic in unpaid internships,
Right. Right.
but really, I would say even the internships, like, some people we know
Hmm.
that did more independent work that was really supporting the practice, um, there's still so much education that's going on that it's like
Precisely.
you are receiving a lot and not
Hmm.
maybe by the end of internship you're giving. That's the plan. Hopefully you're giving more than you're getting by the end of internship, but not
Hmm.
necessarily. You're not expected to be a professional yet.
I mean, you're learning so much because that's where, unlike practicum placements where you're kind of getting your feet wet, internship is where you're kind of immersed in that specific population, and you are really putting yourselves in the role of a therapist, even though you're becoming one, and really planning out those session plans, planning out those treatment plans, for your clients. And so it's really, I would say it's a life changing experience because there's a lot of self reflection that goes into that,
For sure.
realizing, what are some of your biases when you go and see a client,
Mm,
and you know, f- for if you do work, for example, not saying that this is the case always, but if you work maybe in a nursing home, you know, maybe some points of reflection would be like, why do always use Amazing Grace? Is it an easy go-to song, or is it something that the client really wants, or is it something that's safe for me but not
or am I
for
not even thinking about why I'm using it?
right? Yeah, and yeah, there's so much that you're learning from internship, and um, I'm a big advocate for supervision. Even as a professional, I still try and seek out supervision as much as possible, just to help you again on two aspects. One is to help you be aware of your own biases, but also just for your well being, and to know
Mm.
that you are maybe on the right track, or if you need someone to guide you, you have that that you have that support.
So, where did you internship, and what were some of your life changing things that you've taken in? We've talked with people about
Hmm.
interning, but I really want to dive in specifically so people can learn a little bit.
So for me, um, I've always wanted to work in a medical facility. So my internship was at Children's Hospital in LA, and so was uh, that was a quite a unique experience. I got to work with I want to say quite a wide range of population. So I worked again in their inpatient rehab. I worked with children on with cancer, bone marrow transplant, some cardiac issues and cardiovascular issues. Um, Even I'm trying to think back. This is quite a while ago. I was also working in some of the ICUs, and so it was quite a rich experience. And the good thing that one of not the good thing, the thing that I enjoyed the most was this again supervision that we got. There were quite a few interns there when I was interning at CHLA, and there was not only music therapy interns, but there was also art therapy interns, and it was interesting, and it was nice to get perspectives from all the creative arts. So I'll get individual supervision, but also group supervision with all the music therapy interns and art therapy interns. And also, I had the opportunity to shadow or observe some art therapy work as well as some dance movement therapy work. And so that was really fascinating. I guess for me, the life changing was, I guess, I want to say maybe co-leading or leading one of my first palliative care cases towards end of life, and really having to be that pillar of support, being grounded myself to be that support for the client, for the child that was sick, as well as for the parents and siblings who were in that room. And that was quite a challenge, but I think that
Mm,
was a really life-changing experience in terms of how I see my work and how I see myself supporting and being sensitive to what they need. And sometimes it's as simple as asking, what do you need? And it's sometimes as simple as keeping quiet and letting the music hold that space,
mm.
um, for everyone in that room.
So before we kind of go on to professional life,
Mm.
what do you think is a good overview for someone who knows nothing or very minimal about music therapy to understand the 10,000-foot view of different therapeutic approaches and theoretical orientations and things like that?
That's a hard question. I'm not. I think it's for someone who has not or has minimal knowledge. I guess observing firsthand would be kind of the best way to learn about music therapy,
Yeah.
and
Well, what
observing.
role does it play? What role do the theoretical orientations play, and broadly, what does that impact the session?
Sorry, say that again.
What role do the theoretical orientations play, and how does that impact, what they might be observing when they
Right.
Google music therapy or look on YouTube for music therapy sessions?
Right, and I think it's again hard for someone with again no experience. I would suggest really being in person to observe, and how it might be that in a school setting, with children that with special needs, and they have their own individualized education plan IEPs, that maybe a more behavioral approach or more focusing on what they're doing might be more relevant, as opposed to maybe a mental health setting where, working from a psychodynamic perspective, helping to maybe change personality or gain insights into their way of behaving, which is more their more thoughts, emotions. That's where maybe those kinds of theories come in. And so, really talking with people, for someone who does not know music therapy, talking to those different music therapists in those different settings, and asking them, why did you do that, and it's always asking why, and
Mm,
not being afraid to be curious. If
yeah.
there's something that you don't know, I mean, I would want to know. So, tell me more about why you did this, or how is the music really benefiting this, or making even those comparisons of, like, you did this, but a physical therapist can do something similar. What makes music therapy unique?
Mm.
And it's those the elements. I always go back to my approach as being music centered, eclectic, and culture based, and always bringing it back to the music as the driver of the session, music as the force behind change, behind growth. Not just for the client. I think even for me as a therapist, I grow alongside my clients, I believe, and in
Mm.
terms of how I interact with them, my understanding of certain diagnoses and things like that.
Yeah, I would say I like to think of it as like different pair of glasses. So
Mm-hmm.
theoretical orientations is kind of like, for a layman's term, is almost like a putting on a different world view,
Right.
value judgments, and different things like that based on how you think you can best serve this person.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, there are inherent value judgments in all of those. And I think an eclectic model is basically, how do I have the glasses that merge correctly, or how do I wear um, multiple glasses, if you will, to get the best
Hmm.
picture for that person.
Right.
Um,
And
so
I think of it as, I don't know if there's these types of glasses in the US and Singapore. My dad and my mom likes to wear these types of glasses. They're called progressive lenses. And it looks like a normal lens, but if you actually wear it, there's certain parts of the lens that do different things. So the bottom part
yeah,
is for reading, and for the top part, it's maybe for looking far. And it's not like it's two glasses fit on like side by side where you can see the slit in the middle. No, it's one piece
enmeshed.
of
Yeah,
glass.
yeah.
And it's all meshed together, where sometimes you're borrowing or you're using multiple theories or multiple orientations at the same time.
Yeah, for sure. Which is definitely a high level thing that we're not going to like dive
No,
into
no.
deeply. But so you worked at CHLA,
Hmm.
and then you did some private work and some different contracting before we met at
Yep.
Florida Hospital, now Advent Health.
Yep.
Um, Talk about some of the skills and the day to day of what is, or well, we skipped to the board certification exam too. So talk about getting certified, and then talk about um, generically in a day to day, what are the kind of things that music therapists are doing?
So for the board certification exam, I can't remember the exact number of questions, but you just sit for this exam. It's usually in a test center somewhere, and because it's
Mine
all
was in an H
online.
and R Block.
Yeah, I think for the most part it is, um, and because it's all multiple choice, I think you get the results there and there. So right after your exam, you kind of know when you pass, whether you pass or fail, and I think that's good to let you know if you need to take it again. Hopefully you do not, but it also gives you the comfort of like, okay, I got this, and you can find out the results right away, and that's where you can use that to apply for jobs that require that certification when you apply. And so at Florida Hospital, now Advent Health Orlando, I was working alongside Chris. Chris was the pediatric music therapist. I was the adult music therapist. So I saw patients, adult patients. I guess I dare say it was. I think everything and anything I probably have seen it in the hospital.
Yeah, it was a big hospital, and we both covered for each other and other people because we had
Mm-hmm.
people working in cancer care. And I don't know if Rich's episode will be out before this or not, but I mean, it was a 2,000, almost 2,000 bed hospital, I think,
And it was
plus
growing.
outpatient services. Yeah, it was basically multiple hospital complex
Right.
in Central Florida.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, we
Yeah.
saw a lot.
It was. I mean, all the way from NICU. Funny that I said I'm an adult music therapist, but I work in the NICU. I like all the way from the NICU. I did see some mothers in the mother baby unit, for complications with their pregnancies. I've seen patients in oncology. I've seen patients with epilepsy, inpatient rehab, mental health, cardiac surgery. So I mean, almost everything and anything you kind of name it, I probably would have had maybe some sort of experience. And it was a big hospital, and day to day was tough because there's just so many patients that I had to see, and for between Chris and I, we're both always running around just trying to catch up with patients, our caseloads, and managing new cases that come in. Uh,
Constantly.
yeah, which is I think that's a good problem
Good
to
problem.
have.
It's
It's
a
a good
great problem.
problem.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
great problem.
Hmm. And on top of that, individual sessions that I do with patients and maybe families, I do a couple of groups as well. One of which was like a psych group in the psychiatric wards. I did another group in the inpatient rehab unit, and both groups, again, going back to that therapeutic lens, right? That therapy philosophical approaches. Those two groups can be on both spectrums, right? Where for The mental health, it's more maybe more psychodynamic, a bit more music center, where there's a bit more talk based discussions around songs, might be making music together, as opposed to the rehab where we're working slightly more on more behavioral things like improving cognition, improving attention skills, getting someone's upper mobility, upper body strength. So it might be using instruments to maybe reach up, increase their range of motion. It might be playing musical games to test their cognition, their attention skills. It might be also be singing for some patients with aphasia. Aphasia is a condition where you can't really speak. So using music to help prime the brain to help you to communicate. And so that's again being specific to the population that you work with and tailoring how your music interventions or music experiences to meet the needs of those people, those different people in different parts of the hospital.
And generically, what are some of the different types of music experiences? Uh,
Mm.
Especially, I think a hospital is a good example because you do so much.
Right.
What are the different, like, you can even use like the four categories of interventions if you want to make it
Just
simpler. But
sure.
what does it actually look like to have a
Yeah,
music
I
therapist?
mean, so it can be as simple as singing songs for patients. So maybe for someone who's having palliative care and they're seeking comfort, providing instrumental music, singing their favorite songs might be one example that you see. Um, in like I mentioned in the site groups, you might do what we call song discussions or lyric analysis. Is where we take a song, and maybe, for example, it might be a song of, the Beatles with "Let It Be, Let It Be, Let It Be, Let It Be, Let It Be," and so looking at the lyrics, when I find myself in times of trouble, Mother Mary comes to me. And so using those lyrics to kind of prompt people to think, who do you turn to when you face trouble? Or um, what, how do you let it be? How do you let things be as it is? And helping maybe to promote coping skills through that discussion, hearing what other people have to say in response to that song, to build social cohesion or group cohesion. So those are two examples. Another example might be um, where we are making music together with clients, and so for some we might be writing songs. Um, it can be a song from scratch, all the way from making your own melody, making your own lyrics, or even what we call song parodies, or using songs that are already existing. So one example would be Bob Marley's Three Little Birds. Says, "Don't worry about a thing, 'cause every little thing is gonna be alright." So even maybe having some substitutions there of like, don't worry about X thing. So maybe some patients might say surgery. Some patients might say bills, and again, and then substituting that word, it's going to be all right with it's going to be great, it's going to be awesome, those kinds of things. Yeah, I guess that kind of some of the examples of what you might expect uh, in the hospital.
So, being a music therapist requires quite a bit of responsiveness, quite a bit of uh, constant education and cultural awareness, and I would say it requires a lot for um, a person to do it well.
Right.
But what would you say are the main differences between the U.S. and Western kind of model of education, and you can talk specifically about Singapore, but internationally, globally, whatever,
About music therapy education or just like generate.
and practice, and kind of in general.
I can't really say about music therapy education internationally because again, I wasn't trained in an Asian country, and right now I dare say that there are more and more music therapy training programs in Asia. So there's one in Thailand. There's I think a couple in Philippines. Taiwan just started another one, I think. I think Hong Kong maybe has one.
Hmm.
Um, so India has a couple, and so many countries in Asia are starting to have their own training programs. In Singapore, unfortunately, we do not at the moment. We are in the midst of developing one, and hopefully it will come out sooner rather than later. Um, I guess for someone like me, I mean, having worked in the US for about 4 years, it's a bit different. And it ties in with some of the cultural implications behind therapy, cultural implications of emotional expression, and things like that, and emotional health. Um, so in the Western model, it's a very express your feelings. You need to. It's almost like this hydraulic model, right? If you keep pressing, it's going to explode, and you need to release. um, I'm not so sure that that model works in the Asian context, where research has shown that Asians, or I want to say East Asians specifically, that we are able to hold contrasting emotions in our bodies. So we are able to feel both happy and sad at the same time. We are able to um, be resilient when we are facing those kinds of tough issues. And even having it's very different from the hydraulic model of like release and express. I think in Asian context there's more emphasis on like respecting the other person, that you wouldn't necessarily what we call shame the next person. So if you didn't understand anything, you wouldn't ask a question, because you do not want to embarrass the presenter. Because by asking a question to the teacher or to the presenter, you're basically in a way saying that as a presenter you're not doing your job right.
Mm.
So some of those cultural implications, even on health. um, uh, there is, again, I think this is happens all over the world, where therapy is not a good word, or when you think of therapy there's always something like there's something wrong with you. I think
Uh-huh.
that's still apparent even in Asian cultures as well. And the concept of mental health, or even I think right now is gaining a lot of attention, and I think it's moving forward very nicely. But even the concept of mental health maybe wasn't as apparent, or it's always something that is physically manifested. So sometimes you might see that for someone in Asia, or an Asian person, to be depressed, that person might report more symptoms, bodily symptoms, somatic symptoms of I'm feeling tired, I am I'm coughing, and those symptoms are not necessarily an indicator of some sort of disease, but it might be some sort of indicator for a mental condition like depression. um, so a lot of cultural things to consider, especially if you want to work as a music therapist. Thinking about culture and music too, and how what is the role of music in that certain culture. And so, for example, I'm generalizing here, but in like the Muslim faith or the Muslim tradition, um, music or their singing it's often used to it's like a call to prayer. And so
Hmm.
apart from that, in certain, depending on how religious you might be, some traditions might say that music is haram, or
Hmm.
forbidden. And so really being sensitive to that kind of thing. And I was just
Yeah.
recently speaking to my music therapist friend, where she is Chinese, and she had a Malay client. And the Malay client says that she only listens to like those chants, those prayers, and that that Malay client wasn't comfortable with the music therapist, the Chinese person, singing those Muslim chants and prayers.
Yeah.
And so being okay to to or even taking that step to ask, hey, um, I'm not a believer, I'm not a Muslim myself, is it okay if I sing that chant for you? Or even in the Western context, I think for someone who's not a Christian, being honest with with your client who's asking for Christian music to be, hey, uh, I'm not a Christian, but I am willing to sing. Would you be okay if I sang those Christian songs? And
Yeah, yeah. And as appropriate too, like you don't always have to, I would say, disclose that if it's not
right, as
appropriate. There
appropriate.
are times where it's very appropriate to
Hmm.
disclose that too.
For sure.
Because yeah, it's the same thing. I had the same thing several times. We had a lot of different Muslim clients at Florida Hospital, and it's also the conversation just changes. I think of, well, how can I connect you to your music?
Hmm.
Because it's not about me
Right.
delivering anything. It's how do I reconnect you with what it is? Because I'm not trying to step on toes and do something I'm
Hmm.
uh, not going to be effective. A, and then B, not going to be offensive. I don't want to offend them
Right. Culturally
because I
sensitive
feel,
too.
yeah,
If
like,
if you're not pronouncing certain words right, which might actually mean something else when you say those words, or even just maybe sticking true to that musical tradition.
yeah. So, and if you haven't done the homework, it's not wise to just dive in unless there's literally some extenuating circumstance where the point is education. But almost never in the therapy setting is that the case.
Hmm.
That's reserved for, I would say, you know, a CMTE experience,
Hmm.
a learning experience, but not when you are. That is definitely a countertransference, not whenever you are supposed to be the person delivering health.
Hmm.
Now, making someone the expert and making someone the um, their own advocate of their own story is a different thing, but that's a fine line. But it definitely comes back to who is gaining something out of this.
Hmm.
Now, if it's just as important where the person is um, expressing their identity, expressing their culture, and is put in a place where the same way that I might not know that much even about a specific genre of music.
Hmm.
I might have a person tell me about um, their favorite musicals, or even when I'm asking people simple rapport questions
Hmm.
about um, what video. Oh, you're playing this video game. What is that? Suddenly they're the expert on that video game. In pediatrics,
Hmm.
uh, but it's very different between teach me. I am the person who doesn't know, and ostracizing and coming into their space and um, demanding that you be taught. And I think you have to be
Right.
careful because even with cultural humility, um, you could that's a big microaggression.
Hmm.
It's almost just aggression. That's
Right.
that's not
Right.
micro
Right.
at that point. So it's a sensitive thing, and I think ultimately, like you said, walking in humility will get you very far.
Right.
Uh, well, what would you say are the biggest challenges to just practicing music therapy in general?
Hmm.
It could be
Cha-
things that you've struggled through, or you think generically, things maybe being misunderstood.
I mean, I think like you said, like being misunderstood. I think there's still a lot of misconceptions of what music therapy is. There's still a lot of you know misinformed, I would say, where even some people even in Singapore they would be, oh, I do music therapy myself, or I prescribe my own music therapy, and um, really really being humble, not taking offense at what other people say. I think that's one challenge of like really advocating for what music therapy is when there's so much misconceptions, and there's so much about everyone and anybody can do music, and everybody always says, oh, um, I played this song for that person, and it just made them cry. It was a beautiful moment, and really taking the time to educate people on some of the potentially harmful effects of music. Many people do not see that music can be harmful. Um, I think that's one of the biggest challenges, and I guess a bit more specific to my culture, to working in Singapore. Singapore, it's a country of immigrants, and so we have cultural diversity. We have people from all over the world, and so really, um, learning music, being sensitive to musical cultures that is not my own, it's a challenge. It's a constant, I wouldn't say struggle, but it's a constant learning process of,
Hmm.
learning Malay songs, learning Korean music, learning Indian music, and even in Indian music, there's different languages too. Are you learning a Hindi song as opposed to a Tamil song or some other language? And really knowing your client of like, are they Singaporean or are they have they recently moved to Singapore from India? Which part of India are they from? The northern part, southern part? I mean, so many different parts go into that. So I think it is just keeping abreast of like all the new music that's coming out too. It's a challenge sometimes. You do so much music in your work, you kind of need to switch off for your own sanity.
Yeah, for sure. With all the intricacies and cultural responsiveness and how difficult this job can be at times,
Hmm.
but also rewarding. Why would you tell someone who has piqued their interest about music therapy uh, that it could be the career choice for them? And who do you think are the types of people
Sorry, say the
that do
question
well?
again.
Who are the type of people that do well as music therapists? And what would you tell the person whose interest is piqued but is worried about all of these challenges and where to start?
Okay. So who?
Who?
Okay. Again. Sorry.
What?
Questions again.
What types of people are ideal, can
Okay.
become ideal therapists? Like, what are ideal qualities of a therapist?
Okay. Hmm.
And then, and what would you tell the person who is interested? Where should they start and look into things about music therapy? What would be your advice to
Okay.
some?
Okay. So I think to the, the ideal music therapist, I think, is someone that is self-aware. That's someone that takes the time to really reflect on your own self, your own biases, your own ways of thinking into the world, into music. um, and with that comes like attitudes of being open, of being having humility, um, being stable is very important as well, emotionally stable. And that's just because depending on where you work, you might encounter really really tough cases, and that will take a toll on even just yourself, because you might, for someone who works in a hospital, you might see someone at the end of life, and that can be really challenging. And if you're not stable or grounded, that would be really hard, to come back from. Or even in other settings of special education, where sometimes in those settings children can be a bit active, they can be a bit disruptive, and really being stable to you know ground yourself so that you can lead this group. You can make sure that they are having the best experience possible. So I think I've mentioned that self-aware part, the appropriate attitudes. And I think for to be a music therapist, I think it's really important to have a good foundation in music. And
Mm.
a good foundation in music, be it on any instrument. It can be your primary instrument. I know some people who play the cello or violin or saxophone, and just really honing in your musical identity and using that to really help facilitate how you administer or how you present music experiences. So I think those are, at least for me, the three big things: self-awareness, excuse me, self-awareness, the right attitudes, emotional stability, and musical skills. And so, even in Singapore, I've had many people come up to me. I gave several presentations about music therapy as a career path. And so what usually some of them would say, I'm really interested. What should I go? And my first advice is to go and observe. Have Go and observe music therapy in a setting that you're interested in. So, for example, for music, for those who are interested in special education in Singapore, I'll direct them to some of the special education centers like Rainbow Center, AWA, and ask them to observe. Email those institutions and say, hey, uh, can I observe music therapy? And not just stopping there, not just observing, but also um, asking questions, or like getting those therapists input on why they become therapists, why they became music therapists, what are they doing, and really finding out if that is really a music therapy is for you, because um, it is going to be a long drawn out process to become a music therapist in certain places. It's a 4 year degree, like in the US a bachelor's degree is 4 years. In other places, I think in Australia it is a master's degree, so you need to have some sort of bachelor's degree in music or psychology to get into that program. So it is going to be a big investment to become a music therapist.
Yeah, I think going in with as much knowledge as you can, and knowing that you can't know it all and you
Right.
won't be able to experience it all, but being as informed as you can, because I mean, there are a lot of um, people who burn out in music therapy, and it's the
Mm-hmm.
same with healthcare professions in general.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the people that burn out the most are the people who it was very different than what they expected. And if you can expect the professional life, the documentation, the being misunderstood, all those things that make it hard and challenging, um, and if that's outweighing what you thought it would be, the
Mm-hmm.
positive, that's where you have to reconcile things. And I always say where you find your identity, because you and I both are the same, that um, this is a big part of our life, but it's just a part of our life.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not, I think of myself as a very musical person, but if that was taken away, what's left? And I think
Mm-hmm.
when you have your, foundations of who are you in your family unit, what is your spiritual life, what is the parts that make you you, is not a culmination of things. So I think being comfortable with yourself and knowing your own identity is part of
Mm-hmm.
it, because you also have to be able to shut off, like, this part was a job today. You know what I mean? So
Right.
uh, it's just hard for people, because I think music is so passionate in
It
general,
is. Mm-hmm.
that sometimes um, that feels so vulnerable
Mm-hmm.
and can feel threatened when it's like it also is a job. And I think that's with any music career, or creative arts career in general.
Mm-hmm.
But well, JT, it's been a pretty good chat today. I meant to kick things off with the quick six. I've been starting my interviews with those. That would have been darn it. Okay, well,
We can. Yeah,
open up your
I got it out.
podcast. Okay, what is one song, or sorry, let me
Was
start
the
over.
last track?
Yeah, what is the last track you played?
The last track I played was actually Into the Unknown, Frozen 2.
Why
um,
is that? Were you
and
still
that's
learning
just
it?
because I'm learning it, and I have this client right now who is obsessed with Frozen 2. So she our last session she brought and showed off her Frozen 2 Elsa watch to me. So
That's
that's
awesome.
that's the last track I played. Hmm.
I just did Into the Unknown Telehealth, where I did this thing with one of my clients. We have the words projected on the screen telehealth wise,
Uh
and the parts that are highlighted yellow, they sing, and the parts that are highlighted blue, everybody sings, and the parts that are not highlighted, I sing. So it's a therapeutic singing, mostly therapeutic singing, because the point is like a DSLM
Mm,
style um, speech production and communication and all
mm-hmm.
of those things. So that's a really fun one. I've been doing, and we sing that at home all the time. Marley does the, she does that. She'll do that and she'll go, "What's that, Daddy? Did you hear that?" um, let's see. Next up, if you were an instrument, what would you be?
I
You can
would
be as
be.
philosophical as you want.
Nah, I'm not. I'm gonna stick to the good old piano.
Why piano?
Just because it's so diverse. I mean, again, firstly, it's the first instrument I played, so I guess I'm connected to that.
Uh huh.
Yeah.
Good, good. Let's see. What is something that's been inspiring you recently?
I think for me, it's in the midst of this COVID-19 situation, I just see how at least music therapists or music practitioners in Singapore are really banding together and really helping one another. Because a lot of bars have been closed, a lot of places have been closed where musicians are unable to work, and but they're still they're holding it together by making music with one another. They're showcasing videos. I think there are a lot of songs written about COVID-19 and how we are Singapore strong. We are fighting this
Mm,
together. So I've been inspired by not just the music therapists that have been doing that, but also the musicians and the music practitioners that are here in Singapore.
for sure. I
Mm.
definitely think the art, the movies, the books, the music that comes out of all of this is going to be very interesting. It feels like we're living in a 1984
Yeah,
brave new world or something right
yeah.
now. It's very
Hmm.
strange. So I'll be interested to see all the things that come out of it.
Hmm.
Uh, what this can be anything. It can be life related or it can be music related. But what's a pro tip or a hack that you practice that you feel like everybody should know about?
It's gonna sound cheesy. I would say sleep.
Hey, that's good.
I mean, I hear because even I'm working at a university right now, and I hear so many students saying that I have this project coming up. I haven't been sleeping, and I'm like, you should sleep. You don't. If you're not sleeping, you're not gonna get that project done. And I'm sleeping the best that I can be, or I try to be, to get myself ready for the next day.
Yeah, I was just talking with Taryn about this morning.
Mm.
We've had trouble. She's had trouble getting to sleep. We've
Mm.
both been kind of oversleeping, and I kind of had the realization this morning. I was like, you know, we have both been pretty even keeled. Luckily, we're in a very privileged spot. I'm able to work from home. Her job is already working from home. She does all of her teaching online.
Mm. Great.
Uh, so we've been in a spot where none of our immediate family has lost any jobs or income. Their
That's
life
good.
hasn't changed substantially. Both of my in laws are able to continue working. My family's all doing good. Uh, everybody's doing okay at this current moment. So we've all been pretty even keeled, but I've noticed that I was like, I think the stress and the anxiety manifesting of everything is in this like needing extra sleep right now.
Right. I think so.
Because I remember, I mean, we had some crazy situations when we worked at Florida Hospital,
Mm.
and um, it was the same thing. I realized, like, man, I'm sleeping a lot. Like, not like I am depressed, but that feeling of like
Mm-hmm.
the the lethargy and the not able to focus as well. Um, and I think it's a byproduct. So I think probably a lot of people are dealing with that. And I probably need to chill out on the coffee and not drink as much coffee all day long. It's also hard now that I'm at home. There was always
Mm-hmm.
coffee at work all day long too, but now that I'm kind of bopping up and down from downstairs, it's really easy to drink coffee all day long. But yeah, that's a good one. Any tips that you use to get good sleep?
I mean, I think setting yourself a routine. So, even if you haven't finished whatever you're supposed to do for that day, and if it means by 12 midnight you're in bed, be in bed by 12 midnight.
By
Getting
Wednesday morning.
Back then that was not quite a thing. I was young. We were young.
Yep. That's good. I like that. All right. On the total opposite end, what is your go-to junk food?
Oh, so back in Singapore, we are known for our food. There's so many good food. It's hard to pick one, but I have to choose. I think I would say we have this shop, and it's called Old Chunky. And this shop basically sells deep fried almost everything. So they have like
Love
deep
it.
fried.
So it's like the Texas State Fair.
Yeah, in a way. But this shop is all over Singapore. So there's one that is just down the road from me. It's pretty accessible. They sell fried chicken wings as well. They have what we call curry puffs. It's like similar to, I think it's an empanada in the
Ooh,
US. So that's my go-to junk food.
that's good. I like that. I always loved getting all of the snacks whenever you or Rich would go to the Philippines or to Singapore. And all to me, like the packaging was always so interesting. It's so different
Mm-hmm.
than the packaging. It's colorful and fun. Whereas
Sometimes
like
the
packaging,
biscuits are colorful
yeah,
too.
yeah. So, well, that's fun. Lastly, you kind of mentioned some of these things, but what's a person, project, or an organization that you want to lift with a shout out right now?
I'm gonna do a shameless plug for the school that I'm working at, and it's called Medley Music School. They've been doing great with just because of our the government just recently imposed stricter guidelines, and so we're transitioning into a more online format for most of the teachers. So I want to give a shout out to all the teachers at Medley Music School, and for all the students, and to all my lovely music therapy clients that are unable to come during this time as well.
Hmm. Are you doing any telehealth options right now?
Right now it's a bit hard because, like I think we've discussed, it's a bit harder to do when there's more musical involvement or musical engagement needed or required in those sessions. So it's a bit harder for me to do it with my younger clients.
One thing I would definitely recommend that I'm going to start doing is getting people involved in a project together.
Mm,
Did you see that little virtual band that I put together over Christmas time?
I think so. I think I
I'm going to
might.
do the same thing again with
Mm.
like household items, so like pots and pans and different things like that. And
Ah,
we're going to record. I think we're going to do Three Little Birds.
that'll be fun.
So those kind of things could be fun, even if it's like a quick interaction, just so you're checking in with people
Hmm.
and just saying hi, and doesn't even have to necessarily be a full session.
Right.
Uh, cool, man. Well, I'm glad we got to chat and make up for conference and make up for all the things. So thanks for chatting with me at night, and it's morning, and I'm kind of getting after it now. Where do you want people to find really anything? I don't know if you want people to follow you specifically on any social
um,
media, or if you want them to point them towards like the Singapore
Yep,
Association or
I'll
anything.
just point them to the Singapore Association. So, the Singapore Music Therapy Association is called Association for Music Therapy Singapore, and our
Cool.
website is musictherapy.org.sg.
Sweet. All right, man. Well, thanks for chatting with me today. We got a good one in. I think in the future we'll do some more in-depth chats about culture and music therapy and different things like that. But for today, I think the broad overview was good.
Sounds
Um,
great.
well, for Chris and JT, we're signing off. Remember, give more grace, share
Share
more
more
love,
love,
and make more.
more music.
Boom. All right, y'all. Take care. All right. I hope you enjoyed that chat with my dude JT. And if you did, please leave a rating and review in your podcast player. That helps a lot. If you're watching on YouTube, give a thumbs up and hit subscribe. To be honest, it's pitiful over there right now. I need anybody who's listening on their podcast player, just go and subscribe, because I'm going to have some gear demos. I'm going to have some cool stuff coming over there, but I need people to know about it. So that would help a ton. Leaving a rating and review in your podcast player would really help. Reach out to me at makemoremusicpodcast@gmail.com or follow us on Instagram. You can send me a DM at make.more.music. Other than that, any other ways you want to support the show, merchandise, donations, anything like that is all in the show notes or the description on YouTube. And I guess let's hop right into it. Let's get into this new music shout out. New music shout out. For today's new music shout out, I have Danger by DK Lyons. DK is a songwriter seeking to turn heads with lyrical creativity and intrigue, dressed up in various shades of alternative rock and pulling from his influences from things like Tom Petty to Third Eye Blind to Goo Goo Dolls and to the 1975. So he was raised and grew up in Massachusetts. He's Brooklyn-based, and he takes pride in the unique way he writes about the traditional subjects of love, hope, loss, and fear. So today you're going to hear about his new song, Danger, that it came out just recently via CD Baby on June 26th. So I want you to check out this song, give it a listen, and go find more of his music. All of the links are below in the show notes or the description on YouTube. So enjoy this chat. Remember, everybody, give more grace, share more love, make more music.
And she said, I don't know what I'm doing here. Why don't you tell me? I've been looking at my phone all night. And so I replied, I'm a little broken down inside, but I'm here to celebrate, not to cry. You got some style and pretty eyes, but they're looking through me. I said, girl, give yourself more credit than that. So we found common ground in love that left us to drown. So she said, I could be your life raft. Oh, I'm in danger tonight, and it's time that I decide if I'm ready to take this ride. Cause there's a danger in your eyes as you pull me to your side. You said, let me be what's on your mind. Cause baby, I like danger. Pleasure and pain just aren't the same, at least not for me. I don't see the point in pointless sex. Oh, but I'm wounded and wasted and intrigued, let's face it, she said. Here's a taste of what's coming next. Oh, I'm in danger tonight, and it's time that I decide if I'm ready to take this ride. Cause there's a danger in your eyes as you pull me to your side. You said, let me be what's on your mind. Cause baby, I like danger. Lights come on as the music stops. You turn toward me. This was never in my plans. Oh, but I think back to the time when my sun was up so high. The future is out of my hands. Oh, I'm in danger tonight.